Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay, here to talk a little bit about the last installment of, well, I want to do also the Once Upon a Time version of um, the story of the Wizard of Oz. But as far as movies go, this is the last installment of our Wizard of Oz series, and this is, besides Wicked, the most recent interpretation of the story. And this is Disney's second attempt. So basically, 39 years, 29 years, 29 years after the release of Return to Oz, which was Disney's first attempt to create something out of the Wizard of Oz, we have Oz the Great and Powerful coming out in 2013, starring James Franco. Now, what is the story behind this? What what inspired this? Well, obviously, one of the things that inspired this was the publication of the Wicked book by Gregory Maguire. Wicked, of course, tells the story of the origins of the Wicked Witch of the West and Glindola, the Good Witch, from both the Oz books as well as the 1939 film, which we already talked about. And then you have in 2003, you have the creation by Stephen Schwartz of the stage musical, which becomes one of the biggest musicals on Broadway, reviving the art form once again and reviving the lore. So here you have Disney. Now, Disney's relationship, like we talked about with The Wizard of Oz, is very unique. They wanted to produce the original film, but were unable to secure the rights from L. Frank Baum's widow, Maud. We talked about that. Then in 1954, they finally do get the rights to it. They want to produce a television show, Rainbow Road to Oz, that falls through. That doesn't happen. Then in the 1980s, we talked about Return to Oz, and they secured the rights. But then the rights, as our friend John said in the comments section under the Return to Oz video, they go once again into the public domain and they lose the rights. So that's how Gregory Maguire was able to create Wicked, because the characters and the likenesses are public domain. Once again, Disney didn't own them. They lost the rights to them. So they're able to take the characters, and he was able to take the characters and take the likeness and create this show called Wicked. So, but Disney, once again, wants to try their hand at it. Even though they don't own it, they want to try their hand at doing something again. With the success of Wicked, by 2009, they're like, okay, well, we could do something else. We could create a backstory of it as for it too. But the writer of it, Mitchell Kaplan, he has the idea that since a lot of fairy tales feature female protagonists, you have the Little Mermaid, you have Cinderella, you have Snow White, kind of the opposite thought that L. Frank Baum had when he was writing the original Wizard of Oz in the 1890s, was that at that time he wanted to create, because of his political views, he wanted to create a female protagonist, so he created Dorothy. So the people at Disney were like, well, since all the fairy tales basically have female protagonists, including the Wizard of Oz, why don't we create one with a male protagonist? And they decided to tell the origin story of the Wizard of Oz. And how did the wizard get to Oz? Like, what was his backstory? So rather than, they couldn't do the Wicked, they couldn't do the origin of the Wicked Witch of the West. So they decided to come up with the origin story of the wizard himself. So, but during this time, there's a legal battle between Disney and Warner Brothers because, again, it's public domain. So anybody could do it, right? It's basically a free for all. And there becomes this legal battle of who's going to produce it, either Disney or Warner Brothers, the two old rivals. Ultimately, Disney gets a hold of it and they decide to develop it. Now, originally, they wanted um, uh, Robert Downey Jr., who's at this time in the late 2000s, 2008, he starts the Iron Man series, and he's rejuvenated his career. He's become the face of Disney's relationship with Marvel, right? And basically revived speculative fiction. So they think he's the guy for it, right? But unfortunately, that falls through. So they get James Franco because they decided on Sam Raimi directing the film. And Sam Raimi, of course, is responsible for the Spider-Man films. And he and James Franco yeah, yeah, Zach, this is pretty good. This one, I mean, uh, uh, my honest assessment, it it could have been better. It was a massive flop. It did well, um, commercially, but in reality, as far as critically, it could have been better. But they get James Franco because James Franco worked closely with Sam Raimi in the Spider-Man film as Spider-Man's best friend. So they're like, okay, he's perfect for this role. Who else do they get? You got Mila Kunis. Uh, you got Mila Kunis of Family Guy fame. Michelle Williams as Glinda, and uh, Mila Kunis is playing the part of Theodora, the naive good witch, and you got Zach Braff as Finley, a winged monkey. You got Bill Cobbs as the Master Tinker. So, what is the story? Basically, in 1905, in Kansas, Oscar Diggs is a carnival barker, a con man. Basically, he works with a traveling circus, and he's putting out these elixirs that can cure people, supposedly, right? And the film is interesting because it starts off just like the original 39 film in black and white, right? And he is messing around with this guy's girlfriend named Vlad, this strongman, because at these carnivals, like we talked about when we talked about the origin of professional wrestling, at these carnivals are these strongmen. And this one particular strongman finds out that Oscar is sleeping with his wife. So Oscar, trying to run away, goes into a hot air balloon, gets swept up by a tornado, and gets taken to the land of Oz. Now, how does this? When he gets there, he is greeted by Theodora. She is played by Mila Kunis, and Mila Kunis, um, he's a ladies' man, the Wizard of Oz. So uh, she basically she basically falls for him, and she believes that he can save Oz, and save her, basically from the Wicked Witch of the West, which is hiding out in the forest. And he's the one that is destined, because the King of Oz has died. So Oz basically doesn't have a leader. You know, is leaderless. So he convinces them that he's a wizard. He has magical powers, which he does not, right? And along his journey, he encounters Finley, the flying monkey, who becomes like his confidant. He saves her. He saves him from being eaten by a lion. So there you go, a little bit of foreshadowing. Theodora is telling him that the Wicked Witch of the West, or the Wicked Witch, can be destroyed if you destroy her wand. So that becomes his mission to do that. But it's basically a liar reveal story. Towards the end, they find out that he is not who uh, you have that he is not who he says he is, and he basically forces Theodora to eat a poison apple, and that um, turns her into the Wicked Witch. Now, in this one, Rachel Weisz's character and Theodora Melakuna's character are sisters, right? But it's sort of like Wicked in the sense that the Wicked Witch of the West starts off really naive. She starts off loving and wanting to help Oscar, who eventually become the Wizard of Oz, but inevitably, um, she becomes convinced that he is sleeping with, and he is having an affair with, or cheating on her with Glindola, played by Michelle Williams. So this is a jealousy story, that and a story of unrequited love, because finding this out causes her to turn evil and want to destroy him. So he gets an army together, and he basically defends Oz, and he defeats her. So this is an outsider story, kind of like the outsider story of Dorothy, kind of, him coming from Earth, and him basically, he has no magical powers, and they eventually all find out that he has no magical powers. Yeah, like I said, the liar reveals storyline, but he still manages through his own ingenuity and through with help to defeat the Wicked Witch. Now they have in the production they have several issues. One is that they can't use. They want to make her green, the Wicked Witch, but they can't use the same shade of green that is used in the original, because again they don't own the rights. So this is just a reinterpretation. So they have to use a different shade of green in order to prevent lawsuits. They can't really reference any of the 1939 characters. So even though he has an affair with a woman named Annie, uh, who we find out is Dorothy Gale's mom, right? But they can't directly allude to that either. They just have to hint at it, right? So I think that's what really handicapped this movie. And it was supposed to be like a trilogy, a series, where we are going to see his adventures and everything. But because it didn't materialize in the same way, and it didn't really do well, They scrapped it. The best character on this, though, because like Dorothy, he encounters a lot of friends. The best character is the China doll. There's a sweet little scene where this China doll he encounters, is broken and he helps heal her. That's a reference back to the first part of the movie where he was the charlatan and this girl in a wheelchair asked him to heal her to help her get out of the wheelchair, and he couldn't do that either. So it's like now he's kind of making up for it. So it's basically a fish out of water story too, in the sense that here you have this guy who has no magic whatsoever struggling to overcome in this magical land where he's completely outnumbered. You know, you have the Wicked Witch of the West and her sister, the Wicked Witch of the East, both conspiring against him. You know, like in this crazy love triangle, and he has to try to overcome it. Eventually, he does, and he becomes, of course, the ruler of Oz. Now, like I said, this could have been better. This could have explored a lot more. I think one of the ways it could have been better was if they explored the the political underpinnings of Oz. You know how what happened to the king, for example, who was Glendola's father, right? That was exiled. You know some of the backstory of that. That could have been something to explore. You know why Oscar? You know, like was it a destiny? What is the prophecy that Theodora is making reference to? They don't really explore any of that stuff. You know what I mean? It's just like he just thrust it in there as as this hero, this reluctant hero that doesn't know anything, but okay, here's his position. He's thrust it in there, kind of like a Dorothy, like a pre-Dorothy. So, like I said, ultimately, when I went to see it, um, I thought they said the prequel to the Wizard of Oz, which they weren't allowed to originally call it a prequel because copyright reasons again. So I'm like, okay, I thought this was the film adaptation of Wicked. Right? I didn't know that was called Oz the Great and Powerful when I went to see it, and I was in for a rude awakening. I'm like, oh shit, this is not the prequel that I thought that it was. It was. So I was pleasantly surprised when I when I finally went to see it. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is nothing like the story of Alphabet and Shiz and all that other wicked stuff which I hadn't begun to read the book about because my fiance at the time was a huge Wicked fan. And she introduced me to it, knowing that I liked Wizard of Oz and I liked Return to Oz. She was like, and I love speculative fiction and fantasy. She was like, you'll love this. And in exchange, I introduced her to Star Wars, which we also have the Star Wars review series where we review all the Star Wars films as uh, as well. But this, it's not a canon. Like, not, I don't know where you would fit it in between. Like, if you consider all the movies, I don't know where you guys would fit it. But I'll give this a 4 out of 10. This was terrible. This was like really bad. You know what I mean? The visuals were great. It was a visually impressive movie, but it just like the story was all over the place. you know, I liked Evanora, who is the Wicked Witch of the East. This is the first time Lisa talked about how, and I said to Lisa, we never really. Oh, Aaron, hey, what's going on? Haven't seen you in a while. We never really. Yeah, Aaron, we did Return to Oz. We did a review of Return to Oz, It's in my playlist. There's the Wizard of Oz review series. This is the last one. We didn't do Tin Man or Emerald City. Thank you for uh, telling me about those. We have more to do now, guys. Stuff that I didn't, Wizard of Oz related media that I didn't cover. So I gotta go and actually watch those. But we did all of them. We did the two Wicked films. We did Return to Oz. We did the Muppets Oz. We did The Wiz. And now we're doing this. And what I plan to do, my next one is another prequel, another interpretation of the Wicked Witch of the West. Here we have Mila Kunis's version. There is a version on the television show Once Upon a Time as well, which plays into the jealous sister trope that this movie kind of does. That show is interesting. But Aaron, it's cool to see you. Thank you for contributing. We haven't seen you. I think last time you commented was like when Bashar al-Assad's regime fell, I think, on one of the Middle East videos. Yeah, but I'll check that one out. Emerald City and Tin Man. But this could have been better, man. I love James Franco. I think he's an amazing actor. I love him, especially in the first Planet of the Apes films. You guys know we have the Planet of the Apes movies. We don't have them all reviewed. We should do that one day. That should be our next one because I love the Planet of the Apes 2 series. We have Star Wars. We have, of course, wrestling stuff. You know what I mean? Geopolitics. We do it all on this channel. We do everything. Pop culture, music, whatever. Right? But that's this film. Yeah, me too. He was good in this. I didn't like Mila Kunis. I thought Mila Kunis was terrible in this. It's like there was a part where she's arguing with her sister. There's a scene where she's arguing with her sister, and fire shoots out of her hand. She goes, "I am wicked," and then fire shoots out of her hand, and I'm just like, it would have been funny if the sister would have been like, "Shut up, Meg." you know. Mm. But hated her in this. Her makeup was terrible because, like I said, they couldn't use the shade of green that Margaret Hamilton used in the 39 film, so they had to create a Frankenstein shade of green, which looked horrible. Eesh. But this is one of those that will be forgotten. Disney's two attempts. Return to Oz was good. It's not for everybody, but I liked it. But this, no. And again, they used the Wizard of Oz characters in Once Upon a Time, which is a very interesting show. So when we get to that, the next one, we talk about that. The Wizard of Oz characters play a slight role in that, but it's just a very interesting show. But that was a show that featured a lot of fantasy characters. Some rushed, like Elsa from Frozen, using her in that show. But when we get to that, we'll talk about how the Wizard of Oz characters, both Dorothy and the Wicked Witch of the West, played in that show. You know what I mean? But as far as this was a failed attempt. Disney has never Disney missed the mark with this. This was 2013. Disney was about to turn the corner because before this, Disney had gone through a kind of a low period in the 2000s where stuff just wasn't hitting anymore. The Disney Renaissance had ended. Pixar was all the rage in the animation world. Their movies weren't doing well. And it wasn't until the release of Frozen that things started to really turn around for them again. But this was a miss, in my opinion. And this is why it was never talked about again. It was shelved. Kind of like The Last Jedi. Everybody was talking at that time, oh, Rian Johnson's going to do another trilogy. Last Jedi fans didn't like it, so they reversed course. We're not doing a series. Like, this is what they wanted to do with this. You know what I mean? Which would have been interesting. Maybe a TV show on Disney Plus or something. Disney Plus didn't exist yet, not until 2019. But I'm saying on the Disney Channel maybe could have been more appropriate. But a full-length feature film with this, other than the visuals, no, I didn't care for it. But anyway, guys, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you, Aaron. And thank you, Zach. Nice seeing you. Nice meeting you, Zach. Hope to see you again. Peace.